But then I was so excited. I go to the label, Fomo Lisa, just the most Latin label on the planet, really. Yeah. And I walked in and I could tell everyone's looking at me like the woman behind the counter, like, oh, you must be the new accountant. I'm like, no, because I was white,
Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to this week's edition of the Stay Human podcast, as always presented by the mighty Gibson Guitars. And I have someone on the show who I'm super excited. We were actually going to record this a couple of days ago and it didn't work out, but here we are now. And what that did for me was something awesome. I got to do a deep dive on your music, Arthur, which is incredible. And it's so unique that I just want to know more about you. In 2005, our guest today became the first pianist to hit #1 on the Billboard Latin charts, leading to multiple Billboard and Emmy nominations, chart-topping records, and collaborations with globally admired superstars. He's currently starring in a new HBO Max special titled Piano Y Mujer, which is a collaboration between himself and 5 of the greatest women in Latin music. The special has gone viral all around the world with his performance of Hallelujah, becoming one of the most viewed YouTube videos within just hours, and currently sitting around 6 million views and climbing. So go check it out right after this show. And please welcome to the podcast, Arthur Hanlon. How you doing, Arthur?
I'm great, Michael. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome, man. Like I said, I really wasn't that familiar with your music, although I had heard your music and not knowing that it was you. And over the last couple of days, I've just done a deep dive and just witnessed your unique melding of so many different styles and into this thing that can only be described as Arthur Hanlon music. There's nobody else in the world who does what you do. And yet it is so, I hate to use the word accessible because it's a weird kind of weird word, but your music's very listenable. And even though, there's Spanish, there's English, but mainly it's just great music to listen to. And so I'm excited to learn more about you and where your music has come from. So tell me about, where did you grow up and how did you find your way to being this, unique person in music world?
Let's see. My parents are Irish immigrants. I grew up in Detroit with 6 brothers and sisters, just with a passion for piano since I was really 6 years old. Right before Christmas, my dad bought a little piano for a Christmas present for the kids. And I was just like, his best friend played gigs all over town in Detroit. Didn't read a note of music, but was all by ear. And he was my first mentor, and he taught me just how really to think on your feet, how to just improvise and stuff like that. And then as my career kind of took a weird twist because I do Latin music pretty much now, or I do like a hybrid of Latin music. I had this passion for piano, so my parents like, okay, but you got to work in this country. I don't see music as a career. Come on, it's the only thing I want to do. It's like I don't have a plan B. I just want to play music. And he's like, all right, I'll make you a deal. Why don't you try to audition to the best in this country in New York City? If you get in for classical piano, if you get into Manhattan School, Juilliard, somewhere like that, then we'll talk. But if not, you got to work like everybody else. Yeah. So, and fortunately, I got
no pressure.
No pressure. And I was doing gigs, so I had to do this, this cram for classical. But I got in the New England Conservatory and the Manhattan School of Music for classical piano. But what my parents didn't realize is that Manhattan Schools is 122nd and Broadway in Morningside Heights in the middle of Latin, the Dominicans, Colombians, Puerto Ricans, of course, Mexicans, and here listening, getting up and hearing the salsa, merengue, bachata every day, just kind of blew my mind. Coming from Detroit and playing in Motown groups, all of a sudden I'm surrounded by this amazing music, and I just started playing gigs, and it was kind of for me, it felt really natural. My mom's like, you're like Jekyll and Hyde playing classical music, during the day. And at night you're like. At night you're like going loud. What's up? It hit my soul and touched me, and well, here I am.
When you were growing up as a kid, well, first of all, where were you amongst the kids in your family? What number were you?
I'm number 3. I have 2 older sisters. My father's Arthur, so I was Arthur Jr. And he wanted me, to work, become, a lawyer or something respectable. Or
what did he do? What did your dad do?
He started out working in the factory at Ford.
Okay.
And he ended up going to law school, and he was an executive. He worked while he was working in Ford. He went to law school and did this whole thing.
Super hardworking, academic, and business.
Super hard work. Yeah, and the dinner table, there's the 7 of us, my parents and my grandmother, 10 people every night, and he'd start conversations just to get us talking about different ideas and things.
Had your grandmother come over from Ireland? Were your parents born in the States, or they were?
My dad's the youngest of 9, so half of the family went from Ireland to northern Canada. Then they moved to Detroit, so it was like a whole journey for them. Yeah, And my grandmother really was my first fan, because every night after dinner, when I was like 8 or 9, I would go practice, and she would sit there for like the entire time, sweetly smiling and encouraging me every night. It was so beautiful. I still think about her before I go on stage. Sometimes I say, "Okay, Granny, this is for you," and I'll play for her.
Yeah, and was Irish music part of your life, or was it just music that was on the radio? What was your as you're a kid growing up? What were you hearing in your house?
It was Irish when my uncles came over, and I'd play all these old Irish songs for them. I had 6 uncles and 2 aunts. But it was in Motown and Detroit rock and Bob Seger and all that stuff. And my mentor, who was teaching, I was studying classical, but he was the whole time said, "Dude, okay, that's fine, but you have to know how to improvise. Okay, what chord is this? What song is? What is play? Hear a song on the radio. Now, how are you going to play that?" And so he was the first one that taught me how to use my head and use my ears instead of just my eyes and reading.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I started playing in bands, first in rock bands, and then from like 16, I was in a Motown band. I was the only white guy in a Motown band. And the leader was Flip Jackson, who was Eddie Kendricks from the Temptations, musical director. Sure.
Wow.
And so those guys, we were playing 6 nights a week, and they were all, they were in their 40s. I was 17 when I started with them. I started, it was like 2.5 years with them. Wow. And we played all over town, and then these older guys would come in after their gigs, Earl Van Dyke, all these amazing people.
Yeah, legends.
And they really taught me how to think on my feet. Okay, change tune. All right, we're going this hour now. Modulate, do this. And they were just, because once, Barry Gordy moved to LA, all these cats stayed in Detroit, like most of them, when they were left with, from doing studio stuff, which kind of dried up to a large extent. To doing gigs all over. So for me, but it was like a music school in the street. It was like unbelievable.
When you were a kid and, you said you started playing when you were like 6 years old, how did that make you fit in with the other kids in your neighborhood, kids in school, the other kids in your family? Were you kind of like the weird kid who played piano, or did you do other things apart from piano too, or?
It was kind of strange because obviously, it was like baseball and football were huge. And I played baseball till I was 18, which was really bad for the hands and fingers. But
not so good with swinging a bat and the ball hits your hand. It's not a knuckle buster move. Is not really great.
And then turning double plays all the time. And then my hands would like ache after. I had my mom made me do the classical piano competitions, and I went once kind of out of rebellion, and I had a game at 11, and then I played it once. That's cool. I'll just play the game and go in. I went in my dirty uniform on, and the judges were like, "We even have given you first place, but you got third because that's so disrespectful." And I mean, but as a kid, it's hard, especially piano. And you want to do sports and all that stuff.
Totally.
So.
Yeah. What was high school like for you, or what was that kind of those middle years, junior high school, as you were just kind of trying to figure things out as an adolescent? What were the things that were happening in your life?
Music was a huge part of it, but then hanging out too was a huge part of it. And I was kind of weird in that regard, as you mentioned, because I was like kind of all over the place. I was in the band too, because I played saxophone. So I was with the band people an hour a day and friends with them. And then I was on the baseball team. And then I had some burnout friends I loved to hang out with, because that was like just hang out and listen to music. Then when I started doing gigs, that kind of focused me more because the guys were older, and they gave me great advice. It was like I had like 5 older brothers,
And what did your mom do?
She was busy cooking every day for 10 people.
So she was just like full on keeping the whole thing going.
Oh, full. Yeah. And when I think about it now, I have 2 kids myself too. And we're like overwhelmed ourselves. Now I have much more respect for my mom with 7 kids and her husband and her mother-in-law, every day the lunches she made, she was on a little like, assembly line with the sandwiches,
boom,
PB&J, and the 7 bags, and off we went. So,
and did your family go to church?
Yeah, I grew up Irish Catholic, so that was a big deal too. And every Sunday we'd all get in the car, go to church, and then go to my other grandparents' house. So Sunday was a big deal for us. And then once a month or so, my dad would throw a party after church for his he's got 8 brothers and sisters that all come over. Yeah. And of course that was Arthur, play for us after they started, having a couple of beers. It was, but that actually was a great experience for me to learn, talk about thinking on my feet, play this song, play Danny Boy, play Did Your Mother Come From Ireland? All right, he's got, and on and on.
You've had such a unique life, and I have some similarities. I grew up, my dad was, raised in actually northern Michigan in a little tiny town called Ewan, 10 brothers and sisters. My mom had six there were 6 kids in her house. And, I grew up in a house with 5 kids, and music was this thing in our house where every single kid had a different idea about what they thought was cool. Like my sisters, they played violin and viola, but they were super into like singer-songwriters, Jim Croce, Elton John, stuff like that. My older brother was into, The Clash and punk rock and P-Funk and all these kind of more underground music. And I had another brother who played saxophone, and my mom played organ in the church. So everybody had their different thing. And I love to play basketball, and I never thought of myself as ever going into music. I just it really wasn't like my thing as a kid, but there was something about music that really touched my soul. It was like the way for me in listening to music to escape from whatever drama was happening in my life, in my household, at school, or whatever. And I found this comfort in music that really just touched me. I remember, like, even as a young kid, sitting and listening to the radio and being brought to tears by music. It just always touched my soul so much. Did you have that deep, sort of, I guess, spiritual connection to music? I'm sure, I know you do, but at what point did you start to feel that?
God, I know exactly what you're talking about. And then, there's all these people in the house, and I just sit down, and then I'm in my own world, my own world. I had this crush on this girl called Julie Horowitz in like 9th grade. And so I'm going to write her a song. Yeah. And so it was the worst song. And the light spies through the window as I sit here thinking of you. It's like some cheesy, I can't believe I'm so embarrassed I'm even telling you.
Did you ever play it for her?
No, I didn't. I just, light spies through the window as I hear thinking of you.
It's a little stalkery.
I mean, you're right. I'm sitting out here in the corner in the phone booth.
So did you feel a sense of healing from that? Like in that moment, like, I remember being a kid and having a crush on a girl, and I couldn't talk to my parents about it, for sure. I couldn't talk to the teacher, or couldn't talk to the girl about it, but I'd listen to the radio and songs, the Silvers would come on or something. And there'd be a song about, roller skating, and, and it just made me feel like, man, at least somebody gets me, somebody understands me.
What number were you in line of the
I was 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5.
Yeah. Do you have any insight into that?
I'm thinking not really a middle.
Almost one below the middle.
It's hard with big families,
It's tough, and the other thing that's tough is just, and credit to my mom. My mother always encouraged us to be ourselves. She was always like, you do you. Don't listen to what other kids tell you to do. Don't listen, if somebody tells you to jump off a bridge, don't do it. Like, you be yourself, you be your own person. But it's hard when you're surrounded by other siblings, because the roles become, oh, that's the funny guy, and oh, that's the jock, and oh, that's the kid who does really well in school. And you start dropping into these caricatures almost, or at least you feel like maybe like you're not so great because your sister's way better at math than you are or something. At least that was my experience. And it's hard to define yourself as a kid. So at what point did you feel like, I'm kind of stepping into this music thing, like this could maybe be something for me?
I'd say from an early age, really. In sixth grade, there was the talent show, and then we were all playing soccer, and there were kids that were great, and I was okay,
Yeah.
Then I played this song, and everyone stood up. They went crazy. I'm like, this is kind of cool. I can do something, and I'm like, I can write, I
don't have to hit the piano with my head.
Yeah, right. And then, of course, then my first gigs were, I was in a wedding band, and wow, I get to eat cake for free. I'm getting $150, and there's girls there that are in dresses. This is playing. This is great.
Yeah. You peaked. You were like, there. This is
right. Yeah, I had made it. And my dad's like, no, I don't know about it. And then he started getting nervous because I liked it so much.
So I want to just jump ahead a little bit, because it's fascinating to me that this Irish Catholic kid from a big Midwestern family is one of the most respected Latin piano players in the world. And I mean, when you think of Latin piano, there's so many people who are great and legendary and have defined that space for generations. And yet you've come along and made it your own thing. And I'm curious, how did that evolution? We talked about it a little bit, but if you could just go into a little more about how that evolution took place.
Like we're talking about, talking about being you. I always felt like I got to just, like an inner compass almost. I think about, okay, I want to make money. I know I could making money. I was in New York playing gigs and not making money. Yeah. And, I was graduating from Manhattan School. I went through my master's in classical piano, but was in the jazz class, all this jazz stuff too, and playing Latin gigs. Yeah. And my mentor was a guy called Roy Eaton, who was a Chopin expert, amazing guy, and worked for an ad agency. African American. He was my biggest mentor. I said, Roy, man, I'm graduating, but I'm really nervous. What am I going to do? He goes, no, Arthur, what's the problem? I said, this thing for Latin music. And, well, what's the problem? You got to follow your soul. What's the problem? He goes, I'm a white guy. How am I going to play Latin music? He goes, look at me. I'm black. And everyone told me, why aren't you playing jazz? He was a prodigy. He said, my passion was Chopin. And he was the biggest, he was the Chopin expert, like world level, probably one of the top three. He said, you follow your soul, Arthur, just follow your soul. Yeah. And I was already kind of doing it, but then that could become kind of my mantra, to this day, and really, and that's I think what I'm all about. And I play piano, but for me, it's, much more than, okay, here's a song and here's the melody. This is like flesh and blood, man. This is like a vehicle. That's my job. What can I create that's different and new? How can I transport people to some other place when they hear what I'm doing? Yeah.
That's really amazing gift that he gave you, that just that insight to say, you just do you be you. If whatever music calls you to do, just do it. And I feel like that's the beauty of music. And it's also one of the crutches that we fall into as a society of like, that there's certain genres and that you can only play this genre if you're from this kind of culture, from this space or this experience. And I love the artists who break those, but still hold the spirit of the different origins of the music. I love Carlos Santana for that reason, to be able to take, rock music and Latin music and jazz and deep early African origins of drumming and bring it all together into this music that, again, can only be described as Santana music, and then be able to make it be so pop and so enjoyed by so many people. When you think about the etymology of your music, what are the things that you really want to hold on to from, or who are the teachers that have, maybe not literally taught you, but that you've been drawn to their music and have inspired you along the way?
Well, all the amazing pianists, of course, Bebo Valdez from Cuba, Chucho Valdez from Cuba also. Yeah, I love playing with Cuban musicians, really, because they're that island. Everyone that came there from that conservatory can play anything. And they can go from one thing to the next. And Raul Pineda, all these guys. You go, there's pockets, LA, New York, of course, here in Miami. And so my band's always got about, it's like at least 50% Cuban, just because we speak the same language. We can go, let's go here,
Yeah.
And you mentioned Carlos Santana. That's exactly, talk about, and also you mentioned people love to put you in a little box. Music. That's not me at all. Carlos did that. He was always my hero for that. He's an instrumentalist. He created this thing out of guitar and his vision.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love Luis Fonsi. He's one of my favorite artists. When you are with somebody like that who is so storied, they've done so much music for so long, and you're walking into a room to collaborate. What is that like for you? How do you approach it? What do you?
For me, I love doing collabs, especially given that I play piano. It's all about chemistry. It's like when you meet someone in the street or at a party. Hey, this is sometimes it's like, oh, cool, but and sometimes you're really, I can feel it, right? Like musically when I meet. And everyone I've done collabs with Fonsi, with Mark, with Laura Pausini, there's been this like cool connection. And Fonsi's really cool. He's Puerto Rican, of course, but he grew up in Orlando, and so he speaks English better than I do. We always joke about it. I'm from Detroit, but he's got this cross-cultural thing going on, and he can jump from a standard Latin song to rock and roll to anything, and he loves to mix things as well. So it's cool.
Yeah. Tell me about Piano Y Mujer. How did this thing originate?
Piano Y Mujer, it originated, really was born in the middle of at the start of the pandemic in 2020. Like everybody else, I went from planes, from shows and to interviews in the car to sitting here between four walls. All right, what am I going to do? This is like April of 2020. And I'm thinking, okay, you got to do something. You're here to create. That's what I have to do. And I always had this idea to do something along those lines, because when I started the agency, we were in Detroit with our band. A lot of times people didn't have the money for the whole band. So the agent would be, okay, well, we're just going to send Arthur and the female vocalist. Arthur and his piano, bar mitzvahs, weddings, restaurants, so many times it was just me and the female vocalist playing. And it's like its own genre for me. You can do so much together. So I always wanted to do that. And also growing up in a house with 5 women, 5 strong women, I wanted to celebrate the strong, creative woman. And then this idea I always had in the back of my head, and I think, okay, we're in the pandemic now. It's the perfect time to put it together. So I got on the phone and called some of my best friends and they all said, all 5 said, yeah, count on me. I'm here at home. And we put it together. Wow.
When you think about how you've gone from, just playing the piano in the house to, being on tour, and then you suddenly it all freezes, like the touring stops, performance stops. What was that like for you? I know for me, it was a time of really deep reflection because, well, number one, I just love it so much. I love walking into, a place where there's thousands of people, or it could just be, half a dozen people in a room. And when you start to play, it's like whatever people are carrying in, it falls off, and you start to see the smile or the cheer, or they singing as loud as they can out of tune, or they're high-fiving a stranger, or they're hugging somebody who they've never met before. You know, there's so much emotion that takes place, and then to have that go away. But then also, that's how I've earned my living for the last 30 years. And suddenly I'm like faced with, God, how am I going to keep the lights on? You know, what was it like for you when the pandemic, I mean, obviously you made the best of it with this project, but how was it for you, you know, in your heart?
It was confusing at first for the exact same reasons that you're talking about. And I know it now. At the time, it's like you're in the middle of this kind of abyss here. And I started doing these, these streaming things and everything, which were great, but it's not the same,
Yeah.
And then you finish playing a song and then it's like dead quiet.
Did anybody like that?
Did anyone like it? Because you probably do the same thing when you're on stage and you make eye contact with people and you develop, and one by one, then you start, and then you create this energy. Which goes back and forth in this amazing flow which comes from music, which you don't have when you're sitting in your living room. That was so weird,
Do you ever play on the street? Do you ever go out anywhere? Some towns, they've got like these piano on the corner kind of things that are pretty cool, but do you ever just go out and play?
Last time I did something like that was in 2019 in Christmas, right before the pandemic. We decided to put a piano in Times Square. Yeah. And so we pulled the permit and everything, and it was great for the exact same reasons. You just start playing. It was so cold I could barely play, but once I started warming up, and people started hanging out. It's Times Square, and people walking and they're stopping. And have you done stuff like that? It's cool.
I still do it quite a bit. But the reason I'm asking is because I play acoustic guitar. It's really easy, but with a piano, not so easy. And but it's one of the things that I love about my instrument of guitar. And I'm not a virtuoso at all. I am a singer and a songwriter, and my instrument's kind of just my vehicle to get my songs out. But I love that intimacy of being connected to my instrument, my voice, and just like close proximity with people, and I've wondered that when I think of other instruments, piano it's you either got to set up an amp and a keyboard, or you've got to push a giant piano, or you've got to find some small place where you can, invite people into. Do you still enjoy that, or do you still try to find that, or?
Yeah, I think, and that really was kind of the essence of Piano Y Mujer also. We wanted that intimacy of what we can create with just the piano, and someone as if we did it at the Fiona Hotel here in Miami. It was closed, so they just let us use it pretty much. Yeah. And it was the same thing. Natalia Jimenez or Connie Garcia. Okay, when we're in the studio, it's just you and me. What can create, and I'm not going to accompany you and you're not going to accompany me. We're going to kind of create this energy between the two of us to create something totally, a synthesis that's bigger than the sum of just, the piano and the voice. So how do we do that, and because of the pandemic too, it's, most studio sessions are 3-4 hours. We had like 3 days per song. Because not very many people were in the studio, and we decided we didn't do it virtually. We not that it was reckless. We tested and everything, but so we got to be together. We got to be together. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So we created everything together, all 5 of them, separately, of course. A couple days together, and talk about digging deep and having the time to explore like things that never would have occurred to me. The label wants us to come out. Sony wants to come out in 6 weeks. All right, let's go. We got 4 hours. Oh, that's great. But we had a couple of days just to say, all right, let's try this. All right, wow, cool.
Isn't that amazing? That's one of the, the gifts I think of the pandemic. And I've had, I've had a lot of, like I lost my father to COVID. But even within all of it, there's been so many things that have happened to me that I never would have imagined, and most of it is what you just described. It's like connection and closeness and intimacy with people and even across, virtual means, there's been times when I would link with a friend of mine on the phone and go, one of my bandmates, yo, what's up, bro? How you feeling? And they'd be like, oh yeah, it's cool. How you feeling? I'd be like, cool. Okay. And then you talk about whatever. That's like pre-pandemic. Now it's like, hey bro, how you feeling? And they're like, ah, man, well, let me tell you about it. And I'm like, yeah, I want to hear it. Tell me about it. Like there's like this deeper thing of like checking in with people emotionally that has come into my life that really wasn't there before. Not because we didn't care, but because we're just living so fast.
And a much deeper level in everything. Like, for example, Eva Luna Montaner, she's on it. She's amazing. She's Venezuelan, lives here in Miami, super spiritual. So we got to the studio without an idea, what are we going to do? And then, we started talking about our backgrounds and I'm from Detroit. Okay. And I love to play blues and stuff like that. So it occurred to me, hallelujah, the idea. Yeah. And how are we going to make with something like that? She's from Venezuela. And so I just kind of went into like a Detroit group. And then she just floated on top of that. And it worked. We both felt that we're like, oh, this is, we got really excited.
I got those chills right now just hearing you. I mean, that's the thing that I love about your music, and especially like on that song is that, you're taking this song that has become like a standard, like people have heard it. And you're applying the Latin flavor to it, but then also hitting those blue notes in there with it. And almost at times like Gershwin-y, in terms of the mixing that blue and all that in there. But really it's just like your own thing. And to think that today that could be something that so many people would want to watch on YouTube. I mean, you think of what popular music was 10, 15, 20 years ago, and it was such a narrow vision, of what labels were like, oh, this is what people are going to like. And now we've got this like opportunity for people to be themselves, to be super expressive, to put it on YouTube and let the audience discover who they like and what they're interested in, rather than just what labels are saying. Well, tell me about your experience, what your experience was like with record labels, when you first got into doing what you're doing.
It was hard, and I was in LA after I left New York, and my mentor told me to follow my soul. So I went to LA to create this Latin band, which I did. And I was playing all over town 6 nights a week, but I could not get signed, Michael, I could not get signed. It was, in LA, I was this white guy playing Latin music. We're not interested.
Yeah.
So
what year was this?
This like 2000.
Okay.
They finished New York. Yeah. And so, I'm like, what, I'm going to Miami. And I met this guy called Fernan Martinez, who was a manager, and he was starting, his client at the time was Enrique Iglesias.
Okay.
And he's Colombian. He's got a vision, and he met me and he goes, I think this will work. Yeah. I think this will work. And he signed me within 9 months of being in Miami to a label in LA.
Okay.
When I was in LA, nothing happened. Yeah, and then all of a sudden, there's this gringo in Miami that plays Latin music. I was there 9 months, and I get signed in LA. So, but then I was so excited. I go to the label, Fomoisa, just the most Latin label on the planet, really. Yeah. And I walked in, and I could tell everyone's looking at me like, and the woman behind the counter, like, oh, you must be the new accountant. I'm like, no, because I was white, everyone, and it was hard. The album flopped, did nothing. The second one was okay. And then I wrote this song in 2005, La Gorda Linda, and that hit number one. So that was a game changer.
Wow. So what happened when it hit number one? How did things change?
Just everyone's changed. I was on a plane, and my manager called me at the time and said, dude, it's number one. I'm like, with my bag, what's number one? He goes, your song, idiot, man, it's number one. He's like, in people's perception, the label's perception, because, okay, we can sell piano is what I'm sure that they were thinking. And before, okay, that's so nice, how nice, but what can we do with it? What was the attitude? So it was my third album, and finally, it took off.
Yeah. What's something, and it doesn't even have to be music related if not, but what's something in your life that you planned or were trying to achieve and it didn't happen, but you're glad now that it didn't happen?
Oh, you know what? In college, and then like the late '80s, early '90s, the beginning of the new age thing. I thought I could be a new age pianist.
The new George Winston, yeah.
I would write stuff like. I mean, you can play it backwards and forwards, and it sounds exactly the same.
Changing the one note.
Yeah. And there's like deep reflections, whatever, which is fine, but it's not me. I was from my hometown background from New York, playing with lots of percussion. So I went in this meeting at Narada in LA, and the guy said, no. And so I was ended for like a month, but then I stuck to my Latin stuff. Thank God. Never forget that. Oh my God.
Maybe there's still an album in you there.
Deep Reflections.
Yeah, Deep Reflections with Arthur Hanlon. Sounds more like a Saturday Night Live skit.
Right. Reflections and I'm Arthur Hanlon.
Hey, I'm just so grateful for music, where music is at today. I'm incredibly grateful. I mean, that there is such opportunity for artists who are unique, who are doing different things, who are doing, instrument-based music, that there's an opportunity for people to not only earn a living, but to really thrive and to really have, super vibrant, careers. And there was a time when I just felt like that couldn't be that, and I feel like the more the record industry broke down, and the more that, and even today we're seeing, potentially like the breakdown of things like Spotify, that there's still this way that people are finding music because it feels good to them, and not because it was genre, not because a label pushed it or a radio station pushed it, but just it's coming into their life and they're going, I fucking love that. Like that, and that's what I imagine your audience is. I imagine you got people who are like up, they're dancing salsa, fucking, every kind of dance. And then there's probably some people who are sitting in the front row and just mesmerized, not moving, just watching it, and I can see that there would just be so many different types of people who would be into it. I don't know if it's that way or not, but.
Yeah, it is. It's a complete mix. And speaking of labels, so I must say a game changer for me was, I'm with Sony now. I've been with them for like 4 years. The CEO of Sony is a guy called Afo Verde, who is a guitarist, producer. He was a producer for the Los Fabulosos Cadillacs.
Yeah, sure.
And I was playing at in Nassau Coliseum. When I was with a different label, without mentioning names, and he saw me there and went backstage and said, "This can work." And he really believed in me and what I'm doing. Yeah, he's from Argentina, but he's got influences all over the world as well. And Sony now, they've got everyone that works. It's crazy. They all play instruments. Wow. Almost all, which is unique for a label. And I think maybe because society's almost dictating that they need that. They don't want a guy that used to sell furniture, which is the case for or whatever, to say, okay, how many units can we sell? They want real musicians that know what it's like to play in front of people.
Yeah, I found that too, and there was a time, like you said, where it didn't matter if they were selling toilet paper or used cars. It was like, what's the record we're going to sell? And that's how we're going to market. But once the labels started to die, there became, unfortunately, fewer jobs in the labels. And the people who stuck around were the people who really cared. The people who were like, there's nothing more in my life that I want to do than to help this music get out to people. And I am so passionate about it. I think that's another one of the great parts of the restructuring of the way that music works today.
That's exactly how it was. I remember I had a manager once, I brought over the demo. I was really excited about it. I go, okay, let's hear it. Because I don't have a stereo. No, we're just selling something. For him, it was like he could have been selling anything.
Yeah.
I think I'm out of here. So I got to go.
Yeah. Man, it's been awesome to talk to you, and I'm excited to come see you play. And I hope that people who are listening to this right now make a point to go and see you and see you live, because there's nothing that I find more incredible than seeing someone play piano. Like, there's just something that's so tactile about it. It's different than drums, which is really cool. I love watching drummers play because it's so physical, but there's no, the emotion in drumming is just different. It's less colorful than all the chords and rhythms that you can play and leads that you can play at the piano. And so I hope that people who are listening to this, when you think of all the artists that you can go see, and you should go see as many as you can now that touring is starting to pick up again, but go see Arthur and check out what he's up to. How do you do when you do a live show and you're back there behind this, huge black box of a piano? How do you get the audience to be able to see you, in a big place? Do you have video? Do you have mirrors? Like, what do you guys do?
LED screen for sure. Yeah, definitely video. And I get up a lot, and I love to talk to people. And I love to pick something out in the audience and try to, first when I'm playing, what's their story? Okay, I think she works in an office. Look what she's wearing. She just got up. She's here in New York. She went out to my show. I'm so grateful. Yeah. And then, and then sometimes you're like pretty close. I'm like, what you're an accountant. She's like, yes, I am an accountant. I love to talk to people. And then I'll say, you know what? I want to play your personality. And then I'll try to play their personality just from how I know them, what I know about them. Yeah. So how can I make a connection with the people and remove, especially in like piano music school, conservatories, a lot of people, they use this as like a barrier between. And that's why you put a tuxedo on because you're different, and that's not me at all. It's like, okay, this is like my house. It's a house party with my uncles. We're all in this together. It's like family, let's celebrate music.
Welcome to Arthur's house. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's celebrate life. Let's just play music.
Yeah. Can you play me? Not to put you on the spot, but
you're pretty deep, man. You also got this like a deep positive, super positive side, but then like a light side too at the same time, like a. That's the bass of that.
I love it, man. I'm going to come up with lyrics for it. I'm glad I wasn't Deep Reflections. Hey, man. There's one question that I ask everybody who comes on the show, and it's what does it mean to you to stay human? Like, what does it mean to you to be human first, and then how do you hold on to it, especially in these crazy times we're living in?
To me, it's it's stay human. What do you contribute to humanity? What's real? Stay in real. To yourself is what it's all about to me. And that's what's stripped down like this pandemic. There's so many people with these errors and pretensions, and so many and fake and everything. And I think the pandemic helped me just having time here to think about that, what it is to be human and real, and musically keeping everything, human, I guess. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. Absolutely. I feel that, just that sense of deep authenticity that people have had to come to grips with during this time, really, especially people have had to do a lot of soul searching and think about, their health of them, their physical health, their emotional health, their spiritual well-being, their financial well-being, their communities, their families. Are they finding creative outlets, finding joy in places, and able to share that with other people? So thank you for being somebody who thinks about that. Thank you for being somebody who puts that optimism and that positivity out into the world. I encourage everybody to go and watch Piano Y Mujer on HBO Max. Do a deep dive on Arthur Hanlon's music. And a good starting place is to go check out the YouTube performance of Hallelujah, which is just super, super beautiful. And I think when you go there and see that, you're going to be inspired to go check out more. So, Arthur, thanks for being on the show today. And I can't wait to come see you live. I'm going to come down to Miami. Yeah. I'll be down in Miami in a couple months. So I'm going to come look you up.
Dude, let's do it. Let's get together, have a drink in person.
Let's do it. Yeah. I'll bring my guitar. We could sit there and have a little jam.
All right. It's my favorite pastime here in the studio.
Nice. All right, folks. Thanks a lot. People can find you on Instagram, Facebook, ArthurHanlon.com.
Yeah. And actually, we're starting to film Piano Y Mujer Part 2 in a month. And we're playing the tour, which was canceled twice, but now we think it's going to be a go probably in the middle of the year in the States and in certain cities in South America. So really excited to be playing live again.
Nice. All right. Thanks for being on the Stay Human podcast.
Thank you, Michael, so much.